Thank you so much, Alex. And we do have a jam-packed fourth hour. We're going to be getting into Julian Assange and his first public appearance at this international hearing in Europe in a bit. But I wanted to start with a documentary film based on a war game that took place January 6, 2023, entitled War Game. I came across it this week, and for those that don't know, for a long time now, you've had this clique of intelligence officials, military units, people within the government that plan and profile all of these different types of scenarios, especially when we're talking about elections. In fact, in 2020, John Podesta, I believe, he was playing Biden, and that was another war game. Now, this really takes you through what they're planning to do if they have to steal an election under the guise of saving democracy from a stolen election. I want that to sink in for a moment, okay? When you see the players that are in this, okay, let's take a look. Let's scroll down a little bit. These are just some of the key players. There's some other all-stars in there. Other than Wesley Clark and Vindman, one of the key players in the false impeachment attempts of Trump, Peter Strzok is a huge part of this. And I got to tell you, we're going to play some of the clips and the scenarios that they're trying to present, but believe these people when they tell you who they are or who they want you to believe they are playing. So in other words, in this, William Crystal, another total all-star, a warmonger that has been around decades, a literal neocon from the Project for a New American Century. You see, he's playing a role with another individual that's based on Roger Stone and Bannon. We're going to show you that clip in a little bit. But you see, now Roger Stone and Bannon type characters, all right, they have on-the-ground units from the Order of Columbus. Now, the Order of Columbus, we're going to get to all of it, just happen to be churches. Oh, so now you're going to have church groups that they go after. Sovereign citizens are mentioned. But here's the key twist that just flips everything on its head, that the quote-unquote insurrectionists this time around actually have members of the National Guard working with them for a quote-unquote violent insurrection. So this whole war game devolves into a civil war type scenario, and it takes place within the span of 6 hours. Now, they have fake media reports. They integrate that with past news footage. They, of course, attack social media and free speech. But I'm going to play this first minute. Now, this isn't the first minute of the show or of the documentary. In fact, when we get to the red team, the first couple minutes of the program are a couple of Army veterans basically casing DC for a violent insurrection, talking about explosions and gasoline, all these different things. That's not real. That wasn't real in 2020. Not even a subplot that they would want to be real with something like the Whitmer kidnapping hoax is and on any of these levels, all right? But over and over, January 6th, we know that this is the real threat. That voice are the people behind this, and it's the central. I mean, you're going to see it right now. Now, like the very first part of the clip that I cut here is this individual from the Central Intelligence Agency sucking up to Wesley Clark. So let's start with that clip right now.
The Director of National Intelligence for this exercise.
Oh, great.
Just wanted to say hello, because
great.
you'll be seeing me at the table.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. Tell
Enjoy
me
it.
what your background is.
CIA.
That
Voice is not the Pentagon, we're not DHS, but we do have an incredible number of folks in our network who have held positions in these agencies who volunteered to serve and are taking this issue really seriously. So we thought, why not bring them all together, and where things go from there will be up to the role players. Seated around this room is an incredible diversity of professional experience spanning the last 5 presidential administrations. All of us are here today because we are increasingly concerned by the rise of domestic extremism and radicalization in this country, specifically within the active duty military forces. I don't need to tell you that the alarms are flashing red. Most of you have at one point sworn under oath to protect and defend the Constitution. Today we'll examine a frightening scenario: what happens when those in uniform break that oath?
Oh, what? And you did see Peter Strzok there. We're going to get to Peter Strzok in a minute. So yet another guy that tried to perpetrate a hoax against the executive in office that was actually elected in this country is part of this drill. I mean, go down the line of how out of touch the people that make this crap are. And you've got that, the spooky violin. They play that throughout the whole thing. So let's talk about the National Guard one moment before we get to Vindman and his little like sneakles. Okay, again, I hate picking on people's physical appearance, but everything about Vindman, for everything, is completely unimpressive. And they even used him like in a cameo role for Curb Your Enthusiasm, which generally isn't that political, and what it is, it's kind of hilarious. And even then I was like, whoa, oh, Colonel Vindman, whoa. Anyway, when you look at the National Guard, that would have been the solution for what did occur on January 6th, right? Instead of having provocateurs, okay, and law enforcement on the inside facilitating what happened, if you would just listen to Trump, okay, and I'm not stumping for the guy, but in this case, yeah, his election was stolen. And yes, he asked for the National Guard. If you have the National Guard there, that's it. It's a wrap, okay? There's the protest, there's the ellipse, and then there's the event at the Capitol that they had a permit for. And anything beyond that would have been neutralized by the National Guard, 100%. So they have to take that out of the equation for this time around. And since you really do want to delegitimize the traditional military, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, freedom of religion, okay, what you do is you offer another scenario. And don't worry, there's going to be, throughout the exercise as well, you're going to have moles within all these different government institutions, right? Because the other guy, he doesn't want to give it up. And here's the funny thing. In this scenario, the president in power, who's played by some Democratic governor, okay, who is it? Let's go to him. It is Steve Bullock, okay, governor of Montana. Is he Democratic? I mean, if he's not, again, they say this is a nonpartisan exercise. Hard for me to believe. Hard for me to believe. Maybe he is a Republican. Maybe he's Romney style, which is a scary style to be. I'd say Montana probably has a Republican governor. I'm rolling the dice on that one, folks. I'm not perfect. But I want you to really understand now they want to target certain individuals that might not go along with the program. So here's Vindman actually talking about that. He's like, well, they failed in their first, there was no attempt at a coup. There was no armed insurrection. Nobody planned on stopping anything, just like there was no coordination with Roger Stone or Steve Bannon or Donald Trump or Alex Jones to storm the Capitol. None of that was real, let alone an armed insurrection. But now they're putting in the flavor, what? Your own military is going to betray you, and they're going to help with domestic terrorists that are former military in an armed insurrection. This also further legitimizes what? um, international forces on the ground in the United States. But here's Vindman telling you about it.
Is developed to reflect a lot of what happened on January 6th, but with the twist that this time members of the National Guard who have been brought in to protect the Capitol actually join the insurrection and turn their weapons around on the folks that they're there to protect.
I just got to stop it again. There was no insurrection. That's not real. They joined the insurrection. And here's the thing. At the end of this clip, I believe it is, they show you a bunch of pictures of the insurrection. We're going to break those down because it's comedic.
The military probably is not doing enough to deal with this question of extremism within the ranks. It's not just us democracy defenders that have learned from this. It's also the democracy offenders, the authoritarians that are looking to advance the cause of stealing elections, retaining power. And they've probably learned that you need the elites, you need the military behind it.
As your opponent.
So you need the military. I mean, this guy, I'd be ashamed if he was my second cousin. So this is the red unit. Okay, I want everybody to take a look. So these are the guys that are now, they've already plotted everything out. This is what they tried to portray like the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys as. It's not real. It was never real. But then they're also going to be in coordination with the Stone and Bannon characters. Can't make this up. One of them played by William Crystal, real warmonger, that are going to put out disinformation on social media. But again, let's play this clip right here first.
Me and my team, we spend all day, every day, studying extremist movements. In the simulation, we're like the real chaos agents, like we're the ground teams, right?
Yeah.
You guys are the Bannon Stone figures. Like,
But we're in touch.
We're in touch. You're the Bannon Stone figures. We're in touch. The real agents of chaos on the ground of January 6th, for what it was, were working with the feds. You understand? Or Department of Homeland Security or the Secret Service. Still haven't figured out that January 5th pipe bomber for some reason, the most surveilled place on the planet. Now, I want people to think about this. That the guy in the beard, they show him going through, you got a Canon camera. It's real dangerous to have a camera in DC. I mean, it's every trope that's over the top ridiculous, that tries to demonize freedom of speech and the Constitution and Bill of Rights and make it the threat and make individuals the threat. Now, again, they're going to be the ground teams. So if any of those pipe bombs had gone off, why wouldn't they be involved in this massive, violent insurrection on January 6th? Because they didn't. Because they got their provocateur event. Okay? And it's completely and totally provocatory. So now we're going to show you the other people they're demonizing active military in this one, folks. All right? So now they're going to talk about the Order of Columbus, and you'll get the insight into the domestic extremist groups.
What a weak response. I'm going to hit him with this right now. As an immediate response, no, you don't control the ground, we do.
Yep. So the Order of Columbus is a name that we made up to create our kind of mishmash of real extremist movements and to show how they could potentially coalesce around centralized leadership. My team consists of American veterans from all different branches of the military with all sorts of different experiences.
Assemble. Where would we like to send a large body of armed crazies?
Capitol.
At the United States Capitol.
So there it is, right there. There's the coordination. Where do we send the troops? Now, again, think about this in direct contradiction to the reality of January 6th. Roger Stone didn't tell anybody to get violent, didn't tell anybody to storm the Capitol, They sure showed up with guns at his place, though, when they wanted to charge him with bogus Russian collusion. I mean, that really happened. But now they're coordinating things with the troops on the ground to send crazies. I mean, first of all, this shows how cartoon the scenario is. Do you think that if there were insurrectionists, they would refer to their own troops as crazies? No, of course not. But let's just continue.
We are here to play the role of the unfaithful, of those who are willing to do violence to achieve political ends.
So here we go. Now I want everybody to take a look at this picture. The do violence, and they're showing you January 6th here. Where's the guns? Where's the knives? I see a bunch of people getting sprayed. I see the gas. I see a camera and a camera phone. Where's all the violence? Let's keep going.
I am thinking like an insurgent. I am
thinking like an insurgent. How about the Make America Great Again woman next to the flag on her phone? I missed the part in any of these photographs that they're showing as they're describing this violent insurrection where there's any weapons whatsoever. Instead, I see a bunch of people not trying to be gassed up and a lady on her phone, maybe the third
what
picture.
I expect enemies of democracy to be doing as they plan the next assault.
Okay, so here we go. The plan of the next assault. Okay, it's another couple guys with their phones out, and I still don't see any guns. I don't see any hostages. I don't see any demands. This is the absurdity out there. But again, we're going to play Peter Strzok. And this is a guy who literally tried to pull a coup FBI style on Trump. Here you go.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm here to brief you on an evolving situation at the U.S. Capitol. We've identified a group known as the Order of Columbus that we believe is behind the violence. It's a very dynamic situation. Both what is occurring on the ground as well as our understanding of that is evolving. What we have heard in this unexpected breach was that the protesters have demonstrated evolved tactics, evolved communications, and evolved weapons from what we saw in 2021. So the Order of Columbus is part of the sovereign citizen movement. It is founded on the belief that the founders established the United States based on biblical interpretation and that therefore the existing government is largely not legitimate. Part of the Order of Columbus's efforts involve registering themselves as churches. They do this for at least a couple of reasons. One is to escape financial scrutiny and oversight, and the next is to provide some limited protection against public disclosure of their activities. And consequently, they view themselves as immune from the existing government. That's all the information I have for now. If there's something you'd like me to go through again or explain further, I'd be happy to do.
Look at that weasel. So now they're targeting active military. They're targeting churches. They're targeting the First Amendment. They're targeting social media. They're targeting veterans. Who warned you about that all those years ago? Oh, that's right. It was Infowars.com and Alex Jones. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. You need to support the broadcast. Get a shirt, get the supplements, get the books, share the videos, support the broadcast. We'll be back in a moment with more. And we are back. It's the Alex Jones Show. I am your host, Jason Bermas, for the fourth hour. I want to shift gears a little bit to something a bit more positive. Now, I can't tell you how happy I am to share this photograph. This is not AI, and if you do not recognize the gentleman in the photograph sharing a moment on a beach with his wife and children, that is Julian Assange. And Assange made his first public appearance the other day at this Council of Europe hearing. We're going to play a couple clips, but before we get there, I think it's so important that this issue really be at the forefront for a number of reasons. The first of which is our right to free speech, right? And in total and complete contradiction to that, you had El Gulio here, Mr. Skeletor himself, John Kerry, calling for censorship and changing our First Amendment because it is an obstacle in their great narrative. And that's the reality. Every time you hear misinformation, disinformation, that guy is a long gamer. He's been around for decades and useful in many an agenda, mainly along the lines of globalism. He threw the election against his skull and bonesman buddy and distant cousin on both sides, George Bush. I mean, you look into it, probably won, but hey, you don't want to challenge a system that has machines and proprietary software and the inability to audit the system and fractional voting, because that's going to come in handy later. And by the way, you'll end up running more of the country's foreign policy decades down the line than the actual zombie they put in office. I mean, John Kerry has been a mover and shaker amongst the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, etc., for a long time. So Assange at this hearing, there were a couple really human moments that made me happy. I just showed you him with his kids. He kind of made a crack about readjusting to life as a human being, as a father, as a husband, as to somebody with a mother-in-law. I enjoyed that part of it. We're not going to play those parts, but there are two clips in particular. The first one is almost 4 minutes long, and I'm probably just going to let it run. There's a couple moments in there where there's some slight silence and pausing, but the gravity of the message is so important that I think, it just needs to be played totally and completely uninterrupted. And then the second clip is going to be him discussing the Central Intelligence Agency, Pompeo, not only targeting him, but his family as well. And these are things that we have to keep. I mean, we just watched that clip right there, right? They're running war games about coups in this country involving American citizens. They're in churches and are veterans. And who's there as the director of national intelligence? Oh, the guy from the CIA. Oh, and the corrupt FBI guy, that guy? Oh, great. Fantastic. So without further ado, let's play this extended Assange clip because he says so much in these 4 minutes.
No publisher had ever been prosecuted for publishing classified information from the United States, either domestically or internationally. I expected some kind of harassment legal process. I was prepared to fight for that. I believe the value of these publications was such that it's okay to have that fight, and that we would prevail because we had understood what was legally possible. My naivete was believing in the law. When push comes to shove, laws are just pieces of paper, and they can be reinterpreted for political expediency. They are the rules made by the ruling class, more broadly. And if those rules don't suit what it wants to do, it reinterprets them or, hopefully, changes them, which is clearer. In the case of the United States, we angered one of the constituent powers of the United States, the intelligence sector, the security state, the secrecy state. It was powerful enough to push for a reinterpretation of the US Constitution. The The US First Amendment seems pretty black and white to me. It's very short. It says the Congress shall make no law restricting speech or the press. However, that was that the U.S. Constitution, those precedents relating to it, were just reinterpreted away. And yes, perhaps ultimately, if it got into the Supreme Court of the United States, and I was still alive in that system, I might have won, depending on what the makeup was of the US Supreme Court. But in the meantime, I had lost 14 years under house arrest, embassy, siege, and maximum security prison. So I think this is an important lesson, that when a major power faction wants to reinterpret the law, it can push to have the element of the state, in this case the US Department of Justice, do that. And it doesn't care too much about what is legal. That's something for a much later day. In the meantime, the deterrent effect that it seeks, the retributive actions that it seeks have had their effect.
I mean, a lot to unpack there. Obviously, and rightfully so, he says the First Amendment is pretty cut and dry. He also, and you could tell this is emotional for him. His voice is cracking. The guy has been extremely diligent. He's intelligent. And for him to have all this happen based on the naivety, again, that laws matter, they don't. They don't. Okay? When the power faction is great enough, what do? They alter the situation. And he also makes the point, look, maybe, just maybe, in a perfect world, if we go to the U.S. Supreme Court, I get off. Because the guy did have to plead. He says, make no mistake about it. I had to plead guilty to journalism. That's it. That is the case. Extremely dangerous. And he talked about that intelligence apparatus. We're going to get into that next. And now he talks, this clip cuts in on the tail end of him kind of describing Vault 7. And I've got this Vault 7 clip that hopefully we're also going to get to. But then he also gets into other aspects of the Central Intelligence Agency specifically. So here's Assange talking about the CIA, Pompeo, and more.
He revealed the CIA's vast production of malware and viruses, its subversion of supply chains, its subversion of antivirus software, cars, smart TVs, and iPhones. CIA Director Pompeo launched a campaign of retribution. It is now a matter of public record that under Pompeo's explicit direction, the CIA drew up plans to kidnap and to assassinate me within the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and authorized going after my European colleagues, subjecting us to theft, hacking attacks, and the planting of false information. My wife and my infant son were also targeted. A CIA asset was permanently assigned to track my wife, and instructions were given to obtain DNA from my 6-month-old son's nappy. This is the testimony of more than 30 current and former US intelligence officials speaking to the US press, which has been additionally corroborated by records seized in a prosecution brought against some of the CIA agents involved. The CIA's targeting of myself, my family, and my associates through aggressive extrajudicial and extraterritorial means provides a rare insight into how powerful intelligence organizations engage in transnational repression. Such repressions are not unique. What is unique is that we know so much about this one due to numerous whistleblowers and to judicial investigations in Spain.
I am sorry, guys. I coughed. I apologize. Rookie mistake. We're back. I want to point out that just last month, it came out once again that, yeah, your phone is absolutely listening to you. So I don't know that it is even that unique that we have all this information, because I haven't seen any accountability whatsoever. This is Cox Media Group, Facebook, Amazon, Google, they all use it. Of course they're listening to your phone conversations. And with that being said, I want to play this clip right here. And it's condescending, and I hate even doing it from a mainstream source, but this is the Wall Street Journal talking about Vault 7.
Wikileaks released thousands of documents and files that it says expose hacking tools used by the Central Intelligence Agency. The leaks purportedly show that the CIA is capable of hacking smartphones, computer operating systems, automobiles, messenger applications, and even internet-connected televisions. The series of files, dubbed Vault 7, consists of 8,761 documents and files allegedly from the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence. Though many of the tools detailed in the documents are the kind of things you'd expect from an intelligence agency, they provide an unprecedented blueprint for how the CIA could hack individuals they're spying on.
So this first part is going to talk about consulates, which I think is extremely important. Let's do that.
Here's how they could work. Say CIA operatives are investigating a suspect in France we'll call John. According to the leaks, CIA hackers operate out of the U.S. consulate in Frankfurt, Germany, using it as a base to cover Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. From the confines of the consulate, the CIA can track John's activities around France. The CIA purportedly has a few techniques it can use to hack into versions of Apple's iOS, the mobile operating system used in iPhones. The WikiLeaks documents detail malware, allegedly used as a hacking tool, that appears to remain on an iPhone even after it has been rebooted, a technique known as persistence. To gain access to phones and other devices, the CIA would exploit zero-day bugs, previously unknown flaws in the operating system's code.
So let me just stop right there. Zero-day bugs is a huge issue. What does that essentially mean? That means that these people get access to not only the software, but the hardware, right? And do an extensive test on all the exploits. I'm a huge geek. You know, I root phones, I jailbreak stuff, I do all that stuff. And there are communities of hackers that find different exploits. The CIA has been doing this really since the inception of these devices and software, and have tools that consumers cannot imagine. And just getting back to the consulate thing, again, we have to remember that, like, diplomats and people we trade, like, for instance, in that latest prisoner swap, espionage is real, okay? And you know what? I want to go beyond just the zero-day bug exploits and the fact that it's not just the CIA, but the FBI also has a bunch of tools out there that are not commercialized. So I was doing this interview with a gentleman named Nate Kane, who is a whistleblower on the inside that was looking at the evidence of the Hillary Clinton illegal email servers. And during that conversation, I bring up the Wiener laptop. You know, to this day, I don't know how we've allowed that story to just go by the wayside. Yes, we have the Hunter Biden laptop, but I would argue, you look at that Wiener laptop at the time, remember, married to Huma Abedin, extremely and intimately connected to the Clintons. And Huma Abedin, by the way, just married Alex Soros. No big deal. I'm gonna let this clip speak for itself, because this is information on the Wiener laptop and the FBI investigation that I don't know has ever been discussed.
I believe that Crossfire Hurricane, I believe, was specifically designed to keep Donald Trump out of the FBI. They had to keep him busy and keep him out of the FBI because of what they had already covered up. They had to cover up their cover up. And I think that's what it was all about.
Well, let me just stop you right there because, you know, a lot of people focus in on the Hunter Biden laptop, for instance. Everybody forgets about the Anthony Weiner laptop that the FBI had and never looked at. And obviously local NYPD looked at that. One of the reasons I want to intertwine that is this is the same time period where Weiner's wife, Huma Abedin, is the right-hand woman, if you will, to Hillary Clinton. It was publicly put out there. All of her emails were accessible through that laptop. And I want to remind people that the only reason Weiner, who's got his own talk show, did a little time in a country club, even got prosecuted for his behavior with underage girls, wasn't any evidence on that laptop. It was because the girl who was 15 at the time that he was Skyping with had that information on her PC. And she went to the authorities with that. Now, I want that to sink in for people because obviously, if she's got that info, they could have scraped some of that information on Weiner's laptop alone. The federales never got involved in that case. And that's something, you know, that was disappointing to me, quite frankly, with Trump, is that he didn't even go that avenue and look into that laptop and these other crimes. But you're saying one of the reasons is to kind of keep him away from the FBI altogether.
Yes. And in fact, it's interesting, you know, you mentioned that laptop because I don't talk about it very much, but the unit that I worked for had two parts. We did the vulnerability management, but we also we had the penetration testing team. And so we had special tools on our laptops that would allow us to do things that other, you know, computers in the FBI couldn't do. That's one of the reasons why I was able to put my information onto a thumb drive and get it out of the FBI that way. I didn't want to print it because I knew that they would be looking at logs for printing, and it wasn't that I had anything to hide, but I needed time to be able to get this information to the right places, and I knew that, you know, if I had to go through official channels, they would have stopped it. Now, one of the things that happened right around the same time as all of this was there was one of our special laptops that went missing from our unit, and it was loaned out, interestingly enough, to the New York field office. And I remember they were using it in some investigation up in New York, and literally right around the exact same time that laptop went missing. And then when my boss, my federal supervisor, who was in charge of all those laptops, it was, you know, he had it on his property receipt. He tried to get that laptop back and it had gone missing, and he was held responsible for it. And he had to end up, you know, getting, I think, suspended or something like that for it, even though it wasn't his fault. You know, somebody basically disappeared that laptop. And I think it was the laptop that was used in that investigation based on what limited information that I had. But, you know, these kinds of things.
So let me just stop because that's a huge story. Yeah. Now, first of all, we don't know where the Weiner laptop is. Again, when you look at the Biden laptop, a lot of people before it got into the public arena had copies of those hard drives. Okay, so it was a little harder to cover up, but again, you know, some of that stuff gets into the public arena. Some of it may be legal. Otherwise, you're talking about when we're talking about special software, I would assume it's ultra recovery. And you know, being somebody who does recovery software, I am quite the geek myself, sir. Probably not in your arena, but
imaging software, recovery software, you know, password breaking software, all of that kind of stuff, and more. But yeah, the purpose of what the laptop was released for was for imaging another laptop that was in an, you know, being involved in an investigation. And like I said, it disappeared. We never got it back.
And that's incredible. You know, forget about the Weiner laptop, the laptop they used to investigate it, folks, which honestly, again, because of these special tools, would have even more information than that laptop in the hands of, say, a local law enforcement. I think that's right. That's right. All right. We got a few minutes left. There was one other major story I felt like we needed to get to today. Secret Service didn't take the first shot at Trump's shooter. No duh. I mean, again, look at all the evidence that we have or had in the beginning, and it was very apparent that, to me, the quote-unquote kill shot by the Secret Service is long after the fact and probably unnecessary at this point. So the mainstream media has tried to demonize Clay Higgins. Bizarre new Trump shooting theory emerges as lawmaker drops bombshell about second bullet. It's not a bombshell. Hey, this is stuff we should have known within the first 30 minutes of the assassination attempt. Ask yourself why they've lied about all of it. So we actually have the name of the individual that successfully shot at Crooks, okay, and disarmed him. It's Aaron Zalaponi. I don't know that we've heard his name anywhere else. Okay, good for the Gateway Pundit for putting out there. This guy is a Iraq war vet, a National Guardsman, and let's just read his testimony. I hear the first three, crack, crack, crack. Oh, this is Higgins reading it. Okay, but this is his testimony. And at that point, I'm like, okay, where are we at here? I look up, I see Crooks. I got his head and shoulders, and I can see a rifle. At that point, I hear another crack, and when I start pulling my weapon up, he gets 3 off as I'm getting my target acquired and getting my red dot up. I see gas emit from his barrel, his muzzle. After that, I hear a snap, a 5th shot go off, and immediately after, I pressed one off, and immediately he goes down. He goes, I know I hit him, okay? Like, there's no doubt about it. Now, these reports had the rifle down, him being hit and incapacitated. Why'd they choose to cave his skull out? Why didn't the Secret Service act before he got the shots off? Why don't we know the name of the officer? Why hasn't he gotten a Congressional Medal of Honor that actually shot the guy? All questions that we should be asking, but no one's even asking those questions, let alone looking for the answers. Folks, that's going to do it for the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show. I apologize for the amateur hour and the cough button. Really shouldn't have done that. Please, please, please support this broadcast, support this network. It is mind-blowing to think that in a few short weeks during this auction period, during what is going to be one of the wildest election cycles, I guarantee it, of our lifetimes, that they could take Infowars.com away from Alex Jones. But I do believe his message, no matter what, will survive, will live on. Infowarsstore.com. Get the supplements, get the shirts, get the books, spread the videos, spread the love. I love you guys, and we'll see you on the flip. Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here. And as you may have heard, unfortunately, TNT, today's news talk, is no longer going to be with us. Now, I want this to be a stark reminder on how fragile the ecosystem of true independent media is. Now, obviously, I loved doing that show 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. But there is a silver lining to this. I am going to be doing more and more independent videos outside of just my Patriot.tv show, making sense of the madness. And we're going to be bringing back the shorter format and some really interesting live streaming interviews. So your support is totally going to be necessary in order to drive this forward, despite the censorship fiesta that we are seeing across really all platforms. So I want to thank all of you out there that have stuck it through many, many years. The Bermas Brigade, without you, I wouldn't be able to survive. So this is a big thank you. So please share the information, share the videos, let people know about the content, the shows, and of course, the documentary films. I love you guys, and I hope to see you on the flip side.